Welcome back to Power Lunch. Right, we've had a view on some of the black economic empowerment deals that we've seen coming through over the last little while. Sasol, the biggest in South Africa's history. We're going to move on now and talk about internet crime and the crux, in a nutshell, what's come out of Symantec's Internet Security Threat Report is that internet crime is growing exponentially. And Patrick Evans, the Regional Director for Africa at Symantec, joins us in the studio to take us through some of the detail and the trends. This latest report that Symantec released just yesterday, give us a sense of what it is that you're analyzing.
Sure, Byron. I think Symantec has built up the largest global intelligence network over the last 10 years. And we collect information, real information of what's actually happening out there every single day. That information comes from sources, sensors all over the world, from email accounts that we monitor, from computers that we're busy protecting around the world. Today we have 4 secure operation centers around the world. We protect 370 million computers and email accounts. We look at 180 countries with 40,000 registered sensors. So all that information is coming into a central point. We're then able to use that information to discern who's attacking whom, what kind of attack's taking place, and what the probable outcome of that attack is. What we then do as a white paper effectively to the industry, but also a help for people man in the street or companies, is to understand the trends that are taking place so they can improve their own security posture, whether it be at home or as a small business or as a large enterprise anywhere in the globe.
What's new? Just how smarter did criminals and fraudsters become in the second half of last year?
Well, criminals have learned something, and that's how to adapt. I think that's one of the first trends that have emerged in the last 6 months. They realize that when you're committing an internet fraud, you've literally got 24 hours probably to do it in. After that, people find out where you are, they start tracing you, and you would have been out of it by that time. So they've become a very mobile force. They move from country to country. The Russian broadcast network was being attacked last year in Russia. They found where they were. They went underground and they popped up in China a couple of months later. So they're able to move, and they're already ready to make that move by the time their doors are broken in.
Now, I did ask Leo Jack what you thought the cost of BE has been, but can you give us a sense of how lucrative a market, if we can call it that, the underground economic activity out of internet crime and the like is? Can you put a number on it?
It's very difficult to, because we look at the actual attack sector. We rely on other people gauging that, and that's the estimate. But those numbers range from tens of billions to 100 billion in dollars globally. I think if one just looks at some of the problems, though, one gets a better sense of it. There's at any point in time probably about $6 billion in drug money that needs to be laundered through Europe. So identity theft plays a very big role in that kind of attack. What they do is people need lots of identities, because since 9/11, there's a law that restricts the amount of money that can be transferred at any point in time without attracting the interest of authorities. And that's roughly $10,000. So if you're going to move $10 billion around the network, the financial network, you're going to have a lot of identities. So we see thefts all the time of 90,000 identities. In the UK last year, 25 million identities went missing. And it's with those that you can farm them out to farmers in countries and pay them minimal amounts to assist in the laundering of money.
Identities are going missing, but it's clearly it seems to be becoming a currency in the underworld, where if you get your hands on a bank account number or an identity number, you can trade it for money, essentially.
Absolutely. We monitor what we call underground economy servers. And there's effectively an underground economy that has been formed, and that underground economy is maturing.
What are these things being sold at, sir? What kind of money?
Identity tends to range depending on the quality of the identity. And what does one mean by quality identity? Firstly, it must be current. There must be a identifying ID number with it, Social Security, or in South Africa, an ID number. And all the details must be there. That would go typically for about $15. If you only got partially of that identity, it could come down anywhere to $1. So the range is $1 to $15 for an identity.
What about stolen computers and laptops? I know I had one stolen not too long ago. What kind of risk am I taking on board?
Well, if the law actually in the EU that if you're not protecting the information, you are actually liable to be found guilty of not protecting that information.
What do you mean by what is classified as protecting the information in the first place?
Encrypting it. So what you'll see as we move forward into this year, there's a lot of encryption technology about to emerge that will protect data on a laptop or even a PDA.
No prizes for guessing that America ranks at number 1 in both the malicious activity as well as the attack origin. But how does Africa and South Africa shape? Just how serious is the threat closer to home?
Well, I think the good news is that South Africa and the rest of Africa is not high up in the ranking. But I personally feel that's going to change over the next 3 years. We're in the run-up to the 2010 World Cup. We saw in the 2006 World Cup that phishing attacks and spam attacks increased between 40 and 60% in the run-up and during the World Cup. But that's not the only problem we face. Broadband costs in this country have been expensive for a while, and that has been a natural deterrent for people to go and buy a broadband service from the service provider. That's going to come down significantly in the next year.
So you're saying there's some logic as to why broadband costs are expensive. They're actually saving us from some of these hackers, some of the fraudsters.
It is helping some people, definitely.
Let's focus on some of the good news that came out of the report, that traditional vulnerabilities are on the decline. When you talk about traditional vulnerabilities, what exactly do you mean? And is it because fraudsters have found more lucrative waters to fish in? And that's fish with an F, not a PH.
100% correct. Firstly, traditional vulnerabilities occur in shrink-wrap software that's issued with computers or you don't buy off the shelf. So typically it would be something like the Microsoft operating system, or you get the internet browser from Microsoft. It will do the same thing. It's a shrink-wrap piece of software. Vulnerabilities have typically been targeted in those programs. What we've seen in the last year is a shift to site-specific vulnerabilities. So custom code, your online banking system is a site-specific system. It's been built by a bank for their own online banking. But the biggest shift has been to what they call the social networks. For example, a social network is YouTube or Facebook, etc. And a lot of people go to those sites because they're attractive, there's a peer community that interacts with them today. And
how are they being exploited, those social networks, the MySpaces, the Facebook?
Any software code you write, no human being is perfect, so they tend to write a software program that's got vulnerabilities embedded in it. There are people specifically paid to go and look for those vulnerabilities. When they find them, they don't publish them. They exploit them. They write code that's intended to exploit them. Now, that sounds very technical. What it actually is, when you go to a website, what in fact happens is a script effectively is downloaded to your computer and a screen built in front of you. So that is a program in itself. So when it's rendering that page to you, it's actually executing code on your computer. Embedded in that code is typically an attack. And they can then use that to do phishing attacks or direct you to other sites that you think you're on YouTube, for instance, or your banking site, but you're actually going to another site. And therefore they're able to get stuff from you.
What about the future? In your research you say that there's going to be an increase in whitelisting technology. What's the significance of that?
Well, there are two types of technologies, whitelisting and blacklisting. And they sound like what they are, but whitelisting is the opposite of blacklisting. So blacklisting, if there's a pornographic site in the world, you have it blacklisted. So firstly, your kids don't go there, or your husband's wife doesn't go there, or whatever. But more importantly, the whitelisting then starts okaying sites to be visited. So on application, because the people are targeting third-party applications in a big way now that you might buy or download over the internet. And they've been engineered in during the manufacturing process of that application. So you don't know about it. You download it innocently. You pay on the internet for that software. It comes into your computer, and it might have some malicious code in it that's going to do something to you.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. That's Patrick Evans from Symantec. He's Regional Director for Africa, talking us through the vulnerabilities and some of the risks that you take on board when you log on to the internet. So you've got to make sure that you've got some decent software running in the background to protect you from that. Right, that's all from Power Lunch in association with MoneyWeb. We're crossing now to CNBC US for US Squawk Box, and CNBC Africa is back at 4 p.m. Central African Time with Regional Roundup.